Hi guys, so today I'm going to show you guys how I took my client from this to this. This is going to be a very detailed video, so if you want to see more stuff like this, make sure to subscribe. So here's my gorgeous client Shreya. So what I did, I started off with her brows first. If I'm going for a heavier look on the eyes, I always start with the eyes and the brows. But if I'm going for more of a simple eye look, I go for the face first. So first I'm starting off with the Refi brow gel, and I'm just putting this all over her brows and making sure to set them in place. As you can see here, I'm just brushing the brows upwards and make sure they're all set in place. And then I'm going in with my Revolution brow pencil, and again just going through the brows and making sure to fill any gaps. At this stage you don't need to worry too much about the brows, because when you apply foundation it may get on the brows, so obviously we're going to fix everything at the end. After this, I go in with my e.l.f. concealer and I just start to carve out the brows. For this step, you can use anything. You can use eyeshadow base, you can use a concealer, whatever you feel like, as long as it's good coverage and it goes all over the lid. So as you can see, I'm making sure the concealer goes all over the lid so we can create a nice base for the eyeshadow. And then I'm going ahead with my Fenty concealer brush and just tapping all over the concealer just to make sure there's no harsh lines and everything's all blended out. And this will avoid the eyeshadow looking patchy, so make sure you're blending. Everything you do, just blend, blend, blend. That is the key. And then again, going over the concealer with a nice fluffy brush and blend, blend, blend. After that's all blended, what I'm doing is I'm taking a pressed powder on a fluffy brush and just making sure to set that concealer. One big thing I learned is if you just go over wet concealer with eyeshadow, it's going to look very patchy, very dark, and you want to avoid that. So make sure you are setting your concealer with just a bit of powder, not too much. So now starting with the eyeshadow, what I do is I grab any kind of bronzer, and what you want to do is put it all over the lid. This is just to bring back the dimension and the colour back to your eyes after the concealer. So what I did next is I grabbed a nice brown shade from my palette and used a nice big fluffy brush and just put this all over the lid again. As you can see in the video, just to blend everything out, I'm going in circular motions and I am bringing it out to the outer corner as well. And then next we go in with the deeper shades. So what I did is I grabbed a more of a dense brush instead of a fluffy brush and grabbed a darker shade, and now I'm putting this just in the outer corner and just kind of blending it all out. So once you're all happy with your transition shade, what you want to do is grab some glitter or any shimmer and just put this all over the eyelids. So today I'm doing more of a halo eye, so I focus it more in the middle of the eye. So the brush I used earlier on for the transition shade, I just grab that brush again and I don't pick up any more product, but I just start to blend it all out again, because the shimmer can create some harsh lines sometimes, so you just want to make sure you blend, make sure everything's seamless. And then it's time for the glitter. So what I do is I use a very flat brush, kind of like a flat concealer brush, and grab my glitter on that and gently just pack it onto the eyelids. Again, I'm just focusing in the middle of the eyelids and just to create that very halo effect. The glitter matches the embroidery on her suit so well. But anyway, what I do then is I get a very, very dense brush and I get a very dark, deep shade, and I'm just packing this onto the outer corner. You need to be very careful about the placement of this shade because it's very dark and you don't want to put it anywhere else. And then again, grab my fluffy brush and just blend it all out. Again, focus on the outer corner. And now for that halo effect, you want to focus on the inner corner as well. So what I do is I get that same deep shade and just pack it onto the inner corner. And over here, I'm just reapplying the shimmer because a lot of it was taken off when I was blending. So my client wanted a very smoked out eyeliner look and nothing too harsh. So what I did is I got a very small brush and I grabbed some black eyeshadow and I just lined up where I want the eyeliner to be. So I always create a template with just eyeshadow, because eyeshadow you can easily remove it, you can't go wrong with it. So once you've created the eyeshadow and the template, you can go in with something darker. So the video did cut out over here, but what I did is I grabbed a very small eyeliner brush and I got a gel liner and I just drew over that template that I made, and I made a very, very thin liner because that's what she wanted. And then just to smoke out the liner, what I did is I grabbed a bit more black eyeshadow and I just went over the liner just to make sure everything's nice and smoked out and it doesn't look too harsh. After that's all done, we're going to start on the base. So I'm just going to cleanse her face because there was a lot of fallout from the glitter, and you want to make sure there's no glitter on the face because it will mix with the foundation and the cream products and it will show. So yeah, just cleansing her face with some micellar water. So moving on to skin prep. Skin prep is so important, very, very important. you want to make sure the skin is nice and moisturized, nice and hydrated, because it will show in your base, it will show in your foundation. So I'm just applying a nice layer of moisturizer all over her face, and then moving on to color corrector. She didn't need a lot, to be honest, but I used the Huda Beauty color corrector just around some marks she had, a bit of discoloration, and just around the mouth and a bit on the under eyes. So some people do have a problem with the color corrector showing even after applying the foundation. So one tip with this is you need to grab a very fluffy brush and apply it with a fluffy brush. If you apply it with a very dense brush, it's going to show and it's going to apply a very thick layer. So with this, you're just applying a thin layer, you're building it up, and it doesn't look too harsh. And in this, you can focus in the areas that you actually need it, and obviously it will look nice and seamless. So moving on to foundation, I'm just testing a bit near her neck just to make sure we have the right shade. In this case, we literally just needed one shade. It was her perfect shade. So I went in with the shade Punjab in NARS and just applied it all over her face. Usually I have to mix a couple colours to get the shade, but I think this was literally perfect for her. So just with a nice thin brush, you want to make sure you apply evenly all over the face. Make sure it's a nice thin layer, nothing too much, because again, this foundation is buildable, and you can always build it up later. So after I've put the foundation on, just with the brush, I'm going to spray her face with a hydrating spray. You need to know the difference between a hydrating spray and a setting spray. So this just hydrates the face again, and obviously makes the foundation more blendable, and it gives the foundation a more glowy finish, which is what I wanted today. This is such a good spray if you need it between any of your cream products, any of your cream steps. Just spray it, and if you feel like your foundation is drying up or your concealer is drying up, literally just drench your face in it, and it's just going to hydrate the face again and blend everything so seamlessly. So after this, I'm going all over the face with a very, very dense foundation brush. You want to make sure it's very dense. If it's fluffy, it can create marks on your face and make it look very streaky. So as you can see, I'm not swiping, I'm just tapping the foundation in the face. That's what you want to do. So remember, the foundation is the base of your makeup, so you want to make sure it's very seamless and very, very blended. You should blend until your arm starts hurting, but keep blending. And we're still not done with the blending. We're going to grab a beauty blender and go over your foundation, basically your whole face, and again just tap the product in. Make sure there's no harsh lines. Another very important step, if you can see I haven't applied any foundation under the eyes, make sure you don't do this, because the concealer can be very thick, and if you apply concealer over the foundation, it could be too much product, it can look cakey. So make sure there's no product under the eye. So once that's all blended, I grab my Made by Mitchell curve case and I get a contour shade, and here I'm just contouring her face with a brush. It doesn't have to be very precise or very blended out, because we're going to make sure everything is blended in the end. So I'm putting the contour on her cheekbones. When you get to the cheekbones, make sure your contour isn't too low. Keep it very high. People always think that you should have it where the line of your cheekbone is, but you shouldn't. It should be a bit higher than that. Having your blush and your contour a bit higher, just make sure your face is very lifted. It looks very lifted. And then I also apply the contour on the forehead and on the jawline and on the nose. So I always do the contour first, because it just brings back that dimension and I know where to place all my products. So here I'm just lightly blending the contour out, just making sure it's not too harsh, and it looks seamless. And as you can see here, for the nose contour, I'm going in with a very thin brush for the nose, just to make sure we get that perfect line and it doesn't look wobbly or it doesn't ruin the shape of the nose. And then moving on to the concealer, you want to apply a very generous amount just underneath the eyes. I like to bring it down the bridge of the nose, and then I like to kind of lift the end of the eye. So where the eyeliner is, I just like to lift that and make a line. Again, this technique literally lifts the face so much. It looks nice and snatched and it doesn't make it look too droopy. I also apply some concealer on the forehead, on the bridge of the nose, tip of the nose, and on the chin. Then you want to grab a very nice, big and fluffy concealer brush and just start tapping the concealer in. Remember, you don't want to swipe, you want to tap it into the skin. It's okay if it doesn't look blended enough or there's a bit of harsh lines. It's completely okay, we will fix that. So once you've blended with the brush, don't worry, it might look a bit harsh. So that's when I go ahead with my beauty blender and again just tap the concealer into the skin. So what I'm doing here is I can see that line between the contour and the concealer. So what I'm doing is I'm just going over that just to make sure it looks seamless and all blended and there's no harsh lines. Again, no dragging on the skin, just make sure you're tapping it in. If you drag it, it's going to look patchy, and a lot of people do ask me how to not make their concealer look patchy, and this is what I teach them. Also, I did forget to mention I put concealer around her mouth as well because I knew she had a bit of discoloration there, so I do like to do that. So once you've blended it with a beauty blender, sometimes I can't get into the small lines just underneath the eye with the beauty blender, so what I do is I get a very small brush and again just tap in the concealer under the eyes. Any harsh lines, anywhere it's not blended, you can just go in with a smaller brush and just blend it out. Okay, so next I'm going to apply some cream blush. You can do this before the concealer, but I prefer it after the concealer. I am using the Made by Mitchell curve case, and what I do is I grab a dense brush and I'm just marking out where I want the placement of the blush to be. So I do like the placement of the blush to be very, very high because it does lift the face again. And then to blend the blush out, what I do is I grab a big fluffy brush and I'm just going over the placement and just making sure it's all blended out. Remember to apply in sections, so if you just go in with a lot of blush straight away, you won't be able to remove that. It's going to be very difficult. But if you work in sections, if you keep building up the product, then you can control the product and you can see where it goes and you can see how it looks. Okay, so now that we're all done with the cream products, you can go back with the beauty blender and just blend everything out if you need. If not, we can go ahead with all of our powder products. Okay, so now how you set your under eyes is extremely important. If you want to avoid that patchiness and that dryness, here's what to do. First, you want to grab a very, very fluffy brush and put some pressed powder on there and just load it up and tap it off. And what you want to do is just gently tap on the under eyes, as you can see. So once you've set that, you can go in with your baking powder. I'm just going in with the Huda Beauty Easy Bake, and I'm just grabbing it on a powder puff and again just going all over the eyes, tapping it in and going down the bridge of the nose as well, just to carve out that nose contour and make it look nice and sharp. I love to carve out the nose because this section of the face is so important and it really brightens the under eye. And then I go in with a very, very light bronzer and again just bronzing the face again, and this just sets the cream bronzer that I applied in the beginning. And then I like to apply some powder blush just on top of the cream blush, just to make sure that it all stays in place. And honestly, if you do this, the blush is not going to come off. It's going to stay in place all day and it's going to look amazing. And then I'm going to apply some Rare Beauty highlighter, again on a fluffy brush and just the high points of the cheekbone. I'm also applying some highlighter in the inner corner of her eyes and some on the brow bone, and then some on the bridge of the nose and the tip of the nose. And then I'm just wiping away the Easy Bake, and also some harsh lines, I just press the powder back into the face, and if there's any excess powder, I just brush it off. After that, I'm just going with some eyeshadow under the eyes, very close to the lash line. I'm using a very, very dense and very small brush, and I'm just going all over. Remember, again, you want to build the colour. You want to start off with a very, very light colour, maybe a light bronzer, and then if you want to go darker, you can slowly go darker. Don't go straight in with a dark shade because, again, it can look patchy and it could go wrong. Once I'm happy with the shade, I'm going to go in with mascara. This is a very big tip I use. So I tell my client to look down but don't close their eyes, and then gently with your thumb lift that eyelid, and then you can start applying the mascara. And again, keep pulling away so they can blink. I always used to struggle when I'm applying mascara because I didn't know what to tell the client and how to apply it without getting it on their face. But once I learned this technique, it's just been so much easier. And then over here, I accidentally applied some mascara on my client's nose, but don't panic, we know how to fix this. What you want to do is just let the mascara dry. Don't touch it, don't apply any product over it, don't try and remove it, it's just going to smudge even more. You just want to stay calm and just let it dry. So while I was letting that dry, I just measured her eyelashes on her eyes and cut off the ends. It was a bit big for her eyes, so what I did is I cut the inner corner. Every time you want to cut the lash, make sure you cut the inner corner, not the outer corner. And again, just apply the lash. I used to struggle a lot applying lashes, but now I've learnt the correct technique. So the best way is to tell your client to look down but don't close their eyes, and this will prevent the lashes from sticking together, and you can get it very, very close to the lash line when you do this technique. Once that's stuck down, I'm just pinching the natural lashes and the false lashes together just to make sure there's no separation between the two. And obviously keep asking your client if the lashes are comfortable, and if they're not, make sure you take the lash off and you reapply, because if it's stabbing them in the inner corner, it can cause to watery eyes and then it could just ruin the makeup. So you just want to make sure they're very comfortable and it's not poking them. So because her eyeshadow look is very, very heavy, I thought of going for a nude or a white waterline pencil. This is just going to bring everything together, make her eyes look bigger. So the best technique for this is grab a powder puff and gently pull on her lower lash, and then you can start putting the waterline in and keep pulling away so the client can blink. Next, I'm just going in with some mascara on her bottom lashes, and after this I'm going to show you guys how I got rid of that mascara on her nose. So once the mascara is dried, you want to grab a clean and dry spoolie and you want to gently rub over the mascara, and make sure you're very gentle and you're not taking off too much product, and keep doing this until you can see that the mascara is starting to fade away on her nose. Once you've done that, just go back in with the beauty blender and just make sure you blend out any lines. I also go in with a powder puff just with the excess powder on it. I realized that it took off some of the nose contour, so I just reapplied her nose contour as well. And then I'm just going in with a lip liner. I'm just following her natural lip shape. But the client did tell me that she likes her lips overlined, so I'm just slightly overlining here. One very important tip is if you grab a powder puff and just put it on your little finger, you can touch the client's face without ruining any of the products or leaving any marks on her face. Another tip is if you want to get the lines nice and precise, just tell your client to smile or whatever you need them to do. And lastly, using a very precise lip brush, I'm just applying the lipstick, and I wasn't too happy with the shade, so I just went in with some concealer and I just lightened the shade a little bit. And lastly, when you're happy with the look, make sure you set it with a setting spray. I am using the Charlotte Tilbury setting spray.